And we sort of saw from what Salah was saying that they were taking their drafts seriously, which their drafts have been effectively the same all the way through. So it feels to me that like there's some change that's about to happen. But for all of the teams so far, they don't want to be the first to reveal it. That's my suspicion.
Well, we will have to see. Well, if they were planning on hiding stuff, then these hovers would certainly do it. But realistically, most of these are not making it out of spawn. So let's have a look as we begin on building T'Challa. We start off with the double ban. Mantis has been banned pretty consistently by a lot of these teams, and that will continue. Virtus Pro, FaZe taking the risk. They start off with the Jeff ban that we have seen being played pretty often by the side of Virtus Pro as of this stage.
Been one of their main things to go towards. The FaZe, they want the one-sided Jeff if they can sort of help it. And the Ultron being taken out for Virtus Pro, I don't think their drafts have been too shocking or surprising realistically. I guess one thing about it that try to double check with FaZe is Domination is always the first map, but we haven't seen them play Convoy at all yet, so we're going to see that no matter what today. We've also not seen Convergence from Virtus Pro because they've either won the series 2-0 or lost 0-2. So we're going to have to see some new maps and some new comps for both these teams eventually.
Now we've seen the Ultron one-sided protected by Virtus Pro, of course, as a little bit of a counter towards that Jeff. Try and ping them from the sky before they escape with your team, and that is going to open up the opportunity for FaZe to ban out the Mantis, meaning we will not be seeing that damage boost from either side. The Adam Warlock taken out by Virtus Pro. This is something that Sparker could play pretty effectively here, but Sparker is also the player who would often play that Ultron, so interesting to see them lean that way at least a little bit if they wanted to try and protect it. Whereas for FaZe, they take out the Human Torch, wanting to prevent that sky domination.
Yeah, Virtus Pro, it's been pretty strategic focused, but that again seems to be the natural thing that they go for. And certainly on Domination, because for the first bans, for example, it's Mantis most of the time, unless it's Convergence where it's Emma Frost, because obviously there's a lot more focus that goes in on to moving payload. Speaking of which, just taken out right at the breadth there from FaZe.
And final protect for them here. They obviously can't protect Ultron or Mantis or Adam, meaning they're really limited when it comes to the Jeff. And here comes the Star-Lord. As we mentioned, it's massively jumped up in priority. FaZe certainly not afraid to be bringing that in.
Would ban out the Venom because you know there's a Jeff on the other side, but instead wanted to make sure that the bans on Emma Frost are mirrored no matter what. This is an interesting challenge for FaZe to deal with. I think they might have ran into Virtus Pro at some point in the bracket of MRC, but it might have just been...
They got caught just short, I believe.
Just short because it's Alcancia instead, yeah. But we saw them like in quick succession. A good finish, I think, for FaZe overall in that tournament. And Virtus Pro winning another winningest on the MRC runs to continue that on. But here, they want to sort of win out on the group, and to get to their revenge of Na'Vi, they need to fight up this opponent of FaZe in front of them in a full best of 5. So like I said before, Techa, we're going to be seeing a lot of new stuff for Stage 2 for both these teams.
Lots of new, but lots of the same. Some very familiar things, and that is, for example, just how good both these teams have in terms of players who play Doctor Strange, heroes to reinforce onto the objective if you start to get close to that 99% onto the point. I'm hearing a little bit of Adam Warlock in the background for all the preparation here. That is, of course, coming in from Saipe, who, while Sparker used to be the player who played a lot of the Adam Warlock, we've already mentioned it, all the teams have become more flexible. So Saipe, who usually plays the flyers or the tracking characters, is picking up a little bit of Adam themselves. And as such, you've actually seen them lean a bit more on Cosmic Cluster because of their experience when it comes to tracking their opponents, while still having the capability of landing these hit scan shots.
And you said about the Star-Lord not really being that much in use for Virtus Pro. His side is on it, yeah. So there's a little bit of a turnaround. You also have the Magneto, help from Finzi to just put the bulwarks in to allow this damage to be farmed up from Phi. And really have a bit more focus on Winnie if he tries to go for these It's Jeff. But Saipe is actually the first elimination. Binary, who has been a terrific vanguard for FaZe, finding the opening here. And already a couple of picks strung together. Saipe is going to be brought back with a life cocoon. But this is advantage still for FaZe.
Yeah, FaZe are actually starting to capitalize pretty effectively here, but Rosa dropping low. Winnie keeping the healing up there in a double strategist setup. It's Binary who falls, but Nevix goes down as well. Both teams losing their Venoms at this early stage. Fincy gets frozen, immediately woken up, but they're so zoned off the point right now. FaZe have control, but just look at the damage Rosa is taking. Once Virtus Pro group back up again, that could be punished.
Hadridra's actually got his ultimate before the other strategist. The Fate of Both Worlds is good to go, and he's going to use it now. Maybe off the back of it, you'll start to see this Rage of Ultron from Sparker being thrown in, especially with It's Jeff being used from Winnie. It's really now just a case of Fi trying to separate some of these players together, and Virtus Pro have farmed up these ultimates pretty well. It is FaZe, however, taking the point first, already getting a third progression, because this fight has gone on a hell of a lot of time.
Strategist overlap there. Sparker and Saipe both dropped ultimates at the same time. They were able to take down one, bring one person back after they get taken down. Five from the sky is absolutely melting people on the side of FaZe, though, and they're completely split, getting pulled into the choke point, and that will be the flip at 49%. But FaZe, they have the opportunity to portal back in if they wish. If they want to try and go for a portal engage into an Ibagamoto, they could try to do so, especially with Virtus Pro currently guarding the main stairway.
You gotta find a way in to go around, and if you can do it at pace, that's the way to approach it. The Venom jumping onto the point is gonna pull people back, and it might provide a bit of space in the sky for Leolus. Meteor M, I think, just pretty much hits the max capacity of damage that it can absorb and just explodes pretty much in Magneto's face, but it's not anybody that's gone down on this defensive hold from Virtus Pro. They're just about 30% on the point, so FaZe is still in the lead. The Eye of Agamotto catching on to Sparker, almost took him down, but now the Rage of Ultron is in hand. It feels again like the last fight. As soon as this Fate of Both Worlds is done, Sparker's going to come in.
Fate of Both Worlds is trying to keep the team topped up as best as they can, but now a lot of those defensive tools are gone. Rage of Ultron to try and see if they can track onto the Jeff, but instead their focus is sent onto the backliners here. Portal coming in for Virtus Pro as they realize that FaZe have control. Great freeze coming in, but all it does is delay. This does mean that they're not on the point for at least a little bit. FaZe have the control of the point, and Virtus Pro are actually just getting picked off out of the spawn here. Fi's going to swap this off. That portal has failed. They're abandoning it.
If anything, it helped out FaZe a little bit more to get those resets in and give Smash Days a little bit more percentage towards that Dance to the Butterflies. That combined with the Venom might be enough damage to hit some of these breakpoints. And there's one ultimate that's fairly close for the strategists, that being Saipe's, but it's not ready yet. So going for this tempo play is perfect from Smash Days. Clean 4K, and now it's a scramble for Virtus Pro to touch this point.
The classic one-shot combo here, going in for the Feast of the Abyss with the Dance of the Butterfly. Either the Dance of the Butterfly weakens them enough for the Feast of the Abyss to finish them off, or the Feast of the Abyss weakens them up for a last slash from Dance of the Butterfly to pick them off as well. And that is FaZe taking the first round of the first map versus Virtus Pro.
It's a good domination start for the side of FaZe. And Virtus Pro, I think, yeah, like I said with the series yesterday, Araco was close. But Krakoa, that first domination game against Na'Vi, didn't seem it. It seemed to be a bit of a difference there. And it's also Virtus Pro trying with a triple strategist, not really being able to succeed. And there's not many instances where you could just say that the eliminations were in favored for FaZe here. It's so much pressure has to go into Fi to be the one to be the difference in getting those final hits. But it just wasn't quite happening outside of the ultimate.
They've abandoned the Adam Warlock. They're moving Sparker over to the Winter Soldier here. Never mind, back to Adam.
Never mind, you're cursing it now.
Well, the Winter Soldier might have been for the last round rollout, just to see if they could make it out of spawn to try and break it, whereas Adam's not going to really do that job. But with a Soul Bond into a Dance of the Butterflies, Feast of the Abyss, it's such a good tool to try and allow your team to sustain through what is otherwise an almost guaranteed one-shot.
It's getting to spooky season now, so the curses might start to come through. But it would be a hell of a hex to put on Virtus Pro if they don't actually come out of their groups as anything other than first or second seed. Third would be a real surprise, but FaZe might be getting ahead of themselves, as am I. We're just taking that first point. You still have another one to try to grab, but you have so many ultimates here, Tetra, to make this first point happen.
Here comes the Galactic Legend, dropped quite early, but that forces out Invisible Boundary. That's a pretty solid trade, and they get a pickup. That is so much value coming in for Leo there. You always want to be trying to trade out a Galactic Legend for at least one pickup. Winnie, see you later, Sparker, sends them down into the abyss. And this is going extremely well. Dance of the Butterfly, Guardian Barrier to try and protect it, but with the extra assist from Binary to break the shield, it's another double. FaZe, they take control of the point again.
And it's after the strategist ults have been used, at least 2 out of 3 of them. You have got a camera revival from Sparker, but that requires Virtus.pro to get into position and get ready for these fights. Now it feels again like a bit of a race. Vi does have that Galactic Legend, and there's not anything in hand for Oasis. That Fate Above World was forced out in that fight just as those picks started to go in favor of FaZe. So now they need to go a little bit aggressive. They're actually forcing out. Fight used a Galactic Legend and he's found absolutely nothing with it. It's Layerless on the other side, just with his normal bit of kit. He's got a 4K from nowhere.
And they're back at the spawn. This is where they ended last round. FaZe are spawn camping. Virtus.pro right now. Sparker bringing out on that Adam Warlock is trying to break through. They have Karmic Revival. If they can make it to the point, they can take a more extended fight. But right now, FaZe are just kiting them all the way back to the objective.
What is going on? It was just a real blunder from Virtus.pro. We don't tend to see those. And there's almost another Dance of the Butterflies from Smash there. So you've got Winnie trying to go for the It's Jeff play, but instantly sent back. And now that over-aggression for FaZe being punished, Virtus.pro wanted to try and turn some progression into their favor. And at least 5 finding another one means that this almost feels inevitable. It is going to go over towards the blue side for at least a piece. But it's 70% on the board for FaZe.
There's the swap, but now FaZe can regroup. They can make their way out together, or even portal in if they wish. But instead, they're going to save that, keep a little bit of a cooldown. Virtus.pro, they're forced to try and mirror what FaZe did. Step up early, try and create some zone. But they can't do it too far because Binary's already on the high ground and could dive the point if they leave it alone uncontested.
The thing that might bite FaZe in the backside there, frankly, is that Virtus.pro took that point without needing any ultimates, and now they almost have 6 to go with trying to hold it. FaZe trying to farm up whatever they can. Dance of the Butterflies is ready, but it feels like you need to get those strategist ultimates out first. Certainly the Karmic Revival. It is going to be the way that this fight starts to engage and start, but there's Dreedro with the counter with the Fate of Both Worlds.
There you are with the high ground Fate of Both Worlds, like you say. Feast from the Abyss with a bit of damage boost is enough to help them get the pickup onto Rosa, who again can portal in if they wish, but FaZe seem more than comfortable to try and take this down. Remember, Sparker will be the next to fall. Has Karmic Revival though, so this is the risk. If FaZe are able to get some more pickups here, then Sparker could just bring everyone back. We're currently at 50% to 71. Here comes the It's Jeff for Winnie. Gonna try and grab someone in the back line. It's absolutely countered, and Winnie's forced to retreat. Ayamagamoto gonna be coming out from Fincy to try and get another pickup, and that sets up FaZe to get the pick on Smashbears, and Virtus.pro are locking down the point here. Portal gonna be dropped.
Yeah, it was a good Galactic Legend because it doesn't need to get the eliminations. It just needs to really ward off what FaZe are doing. And now it feels like the shoe's on the other foot. Now FaZe don't have enough lethality, enough firepower to actually break through this hold from Virtus.pro. You got the Karmic Revival, it was used, sure, but you have got a pole play, I think, in hand for Frenzy that hasn't been needed or used for quite some time now. He's going to try and drop down, and the ultimates needed to be farmed up. Ayamagamoto used on the other side, and it's just too much damage, so one of the Vanguards goes down, and Smash This is there to clean up house.
But that's a lot of ultimates that were just used by FaZe, and Virtus.pro are creeping towards their own. But it's another double, flipping it on 98. Now FaZe, they just need to hold for a little bit longer. Winnie's already moving on to a flank to see if they can get a little bit of pressure onto the roaming out members of Virtus.pro. But it's going to come down to what is probably this last fight. Portal is available for Fincy. If they go down early, then they can bring everyone back and they can try and recontest.
It's pretty much FaZe having to go overly aggressive to make this work. The Feast of the Abyss doesn't catch anything from Nevix. You can see that on the... Oh, Rosa almost goes down. It's going to see it on the UI. His HP gets very low, but the Fate of Both Worlds is forced out almost prematurely. It's going to be used on both sides. Now it's looking what ultimates are going to be available, and there is a Galactic Legend just on the precipice for Layerless. The catch, though, is onto 2 of the backline for Virtus.pro. There's no way out, and in fact, Winnie's going to go down with him.
And with both strategists going down, Winnie trades a 2-for-1, leaving Fi, the only person even close to the point. Portal can't come in time, and FaZe claim the first map versus Virtus.pro.
I don't think many of us had that on the expectation. but it's also Virtus Pro losing at 0-2. Some real harrowing moments in that fight, but FaZe continuing to impress players that have just looked in the best form that we've ever seen them in, and making the Jeff work really well. I think it's just like triple strategist mirror matchups are not favoring Virtus Pro right now, flat out.
They do seem to be struggling to find these actual first engagements. They actually had a composition that looked pretty solid for them. They had the Ultron, which could have tried to ping that Jeff, and then they swap off it for that last hold. And what happens? Jeff grabs both of the backline strategists, takes them off the map, and is able to get the trade out just in time for the point to end out, while also healing the team thanks to that buffed It's Jeff.
It's also nice to see, I can't believe I'm saying this, it's nice to see the silo back in action and having a lot of impact from Smash Days, because people have sort of moved away from it from the most part. And also I said that it was like the mirrored matchup in triple strategists. Actually, throughout all of that, FaZe were just going 2-2-2, and it was enough. It was just too much damage. Virtus Pro trying to make it work with the Adam comp. It just felt that too much went on to Fire to make stuff happen offensively to take points back.
And this is why we've been starting to see teams ban out that Venom. When you're going for a 2-2-2 with Jeff, Symbiotic Shenanigans makes up a lot of the healing that might otherwise have been lost with a Lunar Invis as an example. So seeing that Venom make it through for both teams again, but only one team get the Jeff, we just started to see Virtus Pro feel around, trying to work out which strategy is going to be best. We have Ultron, we have Adam. These are amazing choices. And one of them is very vulnerable to Jeff, and the other one doesn't have a massive revive for the entire team, which is pretty important when the other team's going for a one-shot combo.
And then there's no Emma Frost for either side, which suits the one that is playing the Venom Jeff even more so you lack a bit of that CC. But yeah, I mean, that's one that Virtus Pro are going to be a little bit frustrated about. Maybe Navi's just sat back almost watching and laughing, really, to sort of see this team go under a little bit more stress. But you have to say, that's all FaZe. Like, FaZe played that tremendously well. The other game modes, however, when we get to Convergence and Convoy, I feel like the macro tends to always favor Virtus Pro and how they play them. It's just domination has been a bit of a struggle, so we'll see exactly where Virtus Pro want to take this series now that they're mapped down. But before then, a quick 3-minute break, so we'll see you in a few.
The chat has erupted in phase ups as Virtus Pro find themselves once again in the lower bracket, starting to struggle. FaZe, an incredible first match, but we are pretty convinced that a lot of that seems to have come down to the draft from FaZe.
To an extent, I feel like it's more... We're seeing a lot of teams really over-focus on triple strategists, but there's some that are starting to show up and go, 2-2 is fine. Honestly, 2-2, especially for underdog teams to just go for that, it puts more pressure on the strategists because there's one less of you to keep everybody alive. But it also means that you just have a little bit more going in your favor, especially when you have Starlord, Psylocke. They're two ultimates that you basically go, okay, if we can force out like a Fate of Both Worlds and Invisible Boundary, as soon as they're done, we have two ultimates now that we can use to try to clean house. For Virtus Pro on the back foot, there's typically only one map that they like to take people, that being Araco. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for Na'Vi yesterday, but it's a risk as well because we've not seen FaZe play much on this map other than when we saw, I was going to say them play the Angela, but it wasn't them on this map actually, it was another team. This is the first convoy that we've seen a FaZe played so far this stage.
Yeah, they've been avoiding it pretty effectively up until this point, but finally will be forced to head in there. They've been playing, like you say, a pretty significant amount. No, they have played one convoy. They played Spider Islands on their fourth match that they played so far. So they have played one whole convoy up until this point.
Now, for the draft, it's looking a little bit different for FaZe. The Invisible Woman, Ultron, Jeff being one-sided. Not quite, because it's actually protected from Virtus Pro, but they make sure to take out the Emma Frost, which, like I said before, it's either a Jeff ban that comes in or an Emma Frost one. Makes sense for Emma Frost being convoy. FaZe instantly know that pivot of like, it's either they go for Jeff, Emma, they ban out the Emma, we go for the Jeff.
Jeff's on both sides. Potential for a one-sided Ultron from FaZe if they want to double down onto that, but so far we've already seen them been leading into a 2-2-2 like you did say. The Ultron will not in fact be one-sided, Virtus Pro taking that away, but that means Venom is still available. No Emmas, but the Venom could be utilized here to continue to allow these Jeffs to capitalize and keep their teams protected.
Yeah, Emma being left in a little bit more. FaZe protecting the Starlord, which, I mean, went well for them for the most part. Layla's has been, honestly, one of, like, the glow-up player. I don't know if you'd call him, like, Rookie of the Year kind of thing, because he's not a rookie at all. In fact, he was a console MRC winner right at the start of the year, so it is just more blow-up of the century, I think, for Marvel Rivals Ignite, because he is doing so much work, at least confirms himself and Smashnez, if needed, the Starlord.
Setting themselves up. If he does win this, I believe that would make him, if they like win Ignite, it would make them the first player to win a championship on both console and PC. I believe I'll have to double check that stat because maybe in some of the other regions there is someone we do not know about. Mantis sneaks through the draft. Virtus Pro have damage boost available to them now.
Yeah, it's like I said for the Citadel Gaming draft. If it's been left through that, like that second protect has to be Mantis if it's not been banned at that point. It's almost disrespectful to attempt it, but some teams just haven't. I think like Vice, for example, we were talking to Babybat after their win to qualify for playoffs. So they're saying like they're so used to playing without the Mantis that when they had the option to use it in their drafts, it was almost like it was pigeonholed and shoehorned into what they were doing. And it became a little bit more uncomfortable role-wise to switch it around. So Virtus Pro, they're not going to let the Jeff or the Mantis go without a strong protection. And it makes sense. It's their map choice. They want to start and reignite themselves in the series.
They're starting off an attack. You can see Moon Knights being hovered there. Moon Knight plus Mantis is going to be a great way to try and break any spawn holds that will be attempted. And when we come down to the spawn hold maps, this is kind of the king of them. The first point, that first couple steps of the Flora Colossus mixed with the essence of Krakoa is so difficult to break. So you'll often see teams portaling back in, which is why we did see FaZe finish out the draft with a strange ban to make sure that when Virtus Pro go on the defense, they do not have the opportunity to do so.
Portal plays can be irritating, and when it comes to playing around the objective and certainly a payload, there's not many teams that could do it better than Virtus Pro. They're going for this spawn hold break with the addition of Finzi on the 4 actually, and Binary. We've seen a lot of Angela played on multiple maps. We've seen Angela being played on this very map themselves. It sort of makes sense that this would come into play.
Not able to find any isolations, but it's putting a lot of pressure onto Thor, who might have otherwise been able to capitalize and get some good pressure onto those frontliners, isolate people like Rosa and Smashnez. This is working out quite effectively for them. Leo's on the rocket right now, so they have a BRB, so Binary can afford to play a little bit more aggressively here. But look at the damage output from Virtus Pro. Straggling Prison, though. No damage output if you're back in spawn.
That's a very quick Strangling Prison, all things considered. Just farmed up from Rosa, who has also been a terrific vanguard. Both him and Binary seem to be just leading the line and making it a hard matchup for Finzi and Nevix. They wanted to go for something to really flush out this hole from FaZe, but a minute has passed and the payload has only moved 7 meters.
That's exactly what you want to see. With your spawn hold, Sparker's going to be moving off the Moon Knight onto the Punisher. Going to try and break through those group walls instead of just trying to deflect off of them with that Moon Knight power. It's Jeff coming on in, though. Dridro with the Soul Resurgence to keep the team topped up as best as they can. Jeff does not get any particular finishing blows, but the healing is still extremely effective. The Cosmic Yard Amplifier allows Virtus Pro to just get melted once again, and FaZe keep this held 10 meters and 65 with only 2.5 minutes left.
It's a little bit, I'm not going to say worrying, it's not too much done yet. You got Nevix that has a Strangling Prison, the Fall God of Thunder is available too. So stuff is being farmed up to allow Virtus Pro to go here, but Dridro being stalled out means that a bit more time is going to be bought. It feels that everything has to be thrown in, but yeah, the Strangling Prison on the second side for Rosa, he's got his second in the same time that Nevix has got his first, but 4 ultimates all in hand and being used from Virtus Pro. Throwing out whatever they have seems to be the thing that's really broken this deadlock.
But Portal is still available. They can just come back in. Rose is actually brought back at the BRB, which is a little bit dangerous, but they are going to come in. Smash this Portal's back in. The Mega Hurricane from Phi to try and break on through. But it's Nevix who falls. Finally, Binary goes down to the God of Thunder. Rosa is finished off by Phi, and it looks like Virtus Pro have awoken from hibernation and will finally break this point.
They might be able to quickly engage, though. They might be waiting for Smashnez to actually just go in for a portal play. But if everybody's up beforehand, it might have been good to save it. It is going to come into play now. And there's so many little bits of high ground that you might just want to either jump on it to contest with the portal or just go for these places to waterfall in from. You got Binary that's diving in with the ultimate too from the Angela. So everybody's grouped in. And the Jeff gets a pretty hefty snack.
But is immediately blown up by Phi. The power of Flyers. Binary, though, very close to that environmental annihilation point if they can push them into the pit. But they don't need to, as it's just melee with the axes to burst on through this first point. Now they come in. Sparker is taken out of position and is going to be staggered from the rest of Virtus Pro. Point 1 continues to be held, but that car got some good distance.
It's weird. It almost feels that you could flip the team names around. I haven't seen Virtus Pro being full health before on this first point. But FaZe are somehow making it work. A third, maybe even 4th Strangling Prison was used from Rosa just then. And the damage seems to be followed up on getting a couple more picks, at least from FaZe, despite the fact that Rosa was instantly deleted as soon as he used it. You've got an Eye of Agamotto in hand from Smashnez that might just be used pretty much as soon as it's available. And Virtus Pro are still kind of fighting this despite being down numbers. They're not really disengaging or waiting, and there's 10 seconds left.
Rose is the only one who went down. They swapped off of group to Venom so that they can keep this contested. That's an attempt at environmental from Binary, but not able to find the finishing blow on it. Got the Guard Amplifier into Binary, diving onto the point. Smashnez, Eye of Agamotto was used, has to teleport out because Sparker is trying to find anyone, trying to track Winnie, who's going to the edge, taking Nevix with them.
It's a complete trade out, and I think Dridro tries to get the same, but he's instantly focused down from FaZe. The numbers are starting to dwindle, as is the wick of overtime for Virtus Pro. Psypace, the next one to go down. Sparker down to low HP, as is Finzi, and they just instantly start to drop off and reset. Everybody for Virtus Pro unable to get on, and they're full held on first on their map choice of Araco.
And Virtus Pro don't have Portal. FaZe banned it in the last rotation, meaning Virtus Pro, they have to hold this the natural way. They actually just have to sustain through this and go for quick rollouts. This is FaZe potentially about to go 2-0 up versus Virtus Pro. How do Virtus Pro react? Groot coming in, split the team in two. Magneto for protection if they want to go for a Punisher to continue it going. Double revives. If we can't portal, we make sure that we can stay here. At this point, it might even be worth bringing out Loki just to get even more attempts at trying to revive people.
Especially when you got the players that are able to make it work, like Saipei. He's the one that hasn't locked in his character as of yet. But it's strange. It just seems to be an off day for Virtus Pro. But the way the FaZe have dealt with the draft, they've dealt with some of the strategies, the comps that they're running themselves. You can't say that FaZe are not deserving to be in the lead here and potentially 2-0 up in this best of 5. It was a best of 3. It could be done very, very succinctly, very quickly. But it's going to require a little bit more from FaZe to beat out Virtus Pro and put them in that third seed slot.
It is, of course, important to remember that this is just a seeding game, so there is a factor that these teams could be hiding strategies or potentially to strategically place themselves. But right now, just going on the raw gameplay that we are seeing, FaZe are in a position where they could go up 2-0 versus Virtus Pro in this best of 5. Already, the Moon Knight stacking towards that first ultimate, 39% of the way there, but Smashness is the first to fall to Fincy.
Frozen CC, Rosa lucky to stay alive, but it might be at the expense of Oasis, who requires a lot of resources to keep him topped up. Leolus is not too far away from having a Hand of Khonshu naturally with the amount of just this trash damage that you can splash at Virtus Pro. You're trying to break up these holds as much as you possibly can, but right now it's just these neutral engagements. Hand of Khonshu with all of these group walls means that Virtus Pro have to be careful with how they disengage.
And Moon Knight continuing to stack back up, already back to 22%. But the members of FaZe are looking a little squishy right now. Is Jeff going to be dropped just for sustain? Media M to try and catch the shot, and it is nailed. Bomb that fish as Fincy is trying to sustain on through. A Mega Hurricane coming in from Smashness to break the siege. Fincy falls, 5 falls, and Karmic Revival brings everyone back.
It has to be done again, and FaZe have used up all of the ultimates that they had available. Binary, he has got the Eye of Agamotto, and there's another Hand of Khonshu that's actually available for Layla, so maybe that combo could work. That is a great pushback, though, that stops Binary from getting anything off of the Strange Ult.
Fincy with the knockback may have just kept Virtus Pro in this, preventing that Eye of Agamotto. Leo falls, but they already have that Hand of Khonshu back. But Virtus Pro are locked in here. 31 meters and 18 centimeters is what they're up to right here. Leo's already trying to set up, waiting for the team to group it on in. 5 falls once again. Is the BRB available? Yes, it is.
Bierback is going to bring in fire, and there's really no second chances, even though there's still 2 minutes left of the payload. Has a fair amount of distance to travel still on this first point. Virtus Pro don't have any security in this. Losing Finzy just before he gets the Meteor M is scary. Scary enough that Saipei is forced out to use that Fate of Both Worlds, and then the C ultimate from Sparker is going to follow right afterwards. Camera Revival is very close for Dredro. So FaZe, if they're going with the Omega Hurricane. They need to go now.
In a grouped up, tight enclosed area, Dredro taking a lot of damage here. Smashness trying to create an opening.
Gets away one.
Jeff Nado to push on through. 5 falls, brought back Karmic Revival from Dredro for the second time to keep the team pushing on through these fights. And Virtus Pro attrition, but they gotta touch the point in order to stay in this game. It's about how many times you revive. Here comes the clobbering time for at least any kind of extra delay. It's enough to take out Oasis, but now everyone's grouped up. They're all fighting on 1 point, and I am Agamotto and Fist of Khonshu onto the point. Virtus Pro are melted through this, and FaZe take some casual steps to go 2-0 up.
On one of the home grounds of Virtus Pro, certainly this convoy game mode, it's not only that FaZe won it, but they full held on that first point and gave Virtus Pro a taste of their own medicine. Even there were moments that were close, like you've got Smashness that was coming in with the Omega Hurricane. I thought he was going to try and dive onto Sparker that was on the Adam Warlock. He got away on 1 HP, was able to get a Karmic Revival to bring back 3 players on this defensive Virtus Pro. But it still wasn't enough. They still had enough about them to keep on pushing. And Tetra, this hasn't been close.
It has not been. Again, we've got to preface with there could be some stuff being hidden, but at what point do you have to weigh up potentially keeping stuff secret for the playoffs versus getting an extremely unfavorable playoff bracket? That's where these teams have to be going for the juggle of what are they most scared of. And right now, Virtus Pro, that's a decision that they may realistically, if they are in a situation where they're trying to hide stuff, that they're going to have to make.
I just don't think the Virtus Pro would be sandbagging enough that they would risk go in their first game of playoffs being up against Citadel or Chopped. I think that you want the likes of Insomnia because you've beaten them plenty of times. You want the likes of, like, would it be OG Seed in that case? Yeah, so like, I would prefer them than certainly making a risky first game. And then you're instantly playing in the elimination bracket that you have to win pretty much every game, get to the losers bracket final to qualify for Atlanta. Like, I don't know. Something is really off here for Virtus Pro. It just seems to be like either FaZe have got a good read on them or just something is not connecting today for the MRC recent champions.
There was also the argument that FaZe are actually just popping off. They're just that good.
They're just him, yeah.
We talked a lot about the last series. We talked about Leo being the one who pops off. This one, I think we can absolutely, if we give like a manual caster MVP, that's got to be Rosa, right? Because Rosa just had the plant buff, named after a rose, I assume, coming in with the Flora Colossus Groot. They stacked up 3 It's Groots on a first hold point. Just incredible performance, and we'll see if that continues very shortly because wow. And now we're going to be heading to a break. What an incredible setup, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be heading to see if FaZe can get the 3-0 and move on to that group finals versus Na'Vi, or if Virtus Pro will begin the reverse sweep. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I'm hunkering down. Judge, jury, executioner!
I don't think there's been many instances ever that Virtus Pro have lost 4 maps in a row. Just gonna let that one sink in. It could be 0 and 5 over the last 2 days if they don't sort their act out. We don't know what map it's going to be yet, Tetra, but we know it has to be Convergence.
Correct. No matter what, we've already played a Domination, we've already played a Convoy. We're going to have to go for the mix of the in-between, as currently there is no Resource Rumble allowed in the actual map pool. We're going to be heading in. Trying to remember what that sound effect is. Hold of Jalia, thank you.
Which also makes me a little bit nervous for Virtus Pro because we have seen them lose on this map before. But again, it's their choice. It really is just a case of like looking back at the draft from facing that last one. Invisible Woman, Ultron, Emma Frost, and then Strange. It's such a unique draft, and both teams, yeah, no Jeff allowed.
You know what?
Valid.
Well deserved. Absolutely valid. There's only so many times you can bomb the fish before it becomes enough of a problem that you do need to do so. I saw someone post yesterday after seeing some of the Jeff plays that have been happening in Ignite that we need to start throwing more straws into the ocean because, yeah.
Oh my god.
Jeff has been a menace.
Honestly, I could see J. Jonah Jameson started to just go after Jeff in the meanwhile because Spider-Man hasn't been played in a while.
I want pictures of that shark.
Yeah, pretty much.
And give me a soda. with a plastic straw. All right. Ultron going to be protected for Virtus Pro as Mantis is removed. It's going to be mirrored Ultron. FaZe also, with that Jeff taken away, choosing to lead onto the android itself.
It feels, again, yeah, Mantis, it would have been my sensible suggestion, really. Because whilst there wasn't really too much Mantis in play for Virtus Pro last time, like, even though they had it available, it just seems to be the right kind of approach, especially when it's like the Jeff is already out. You can go for the Adam now, which is what you do. You might be able to get one-sided Adam at this rate. In fact, it's definitely possible, but you are also attacking first if you're Virtus Pro, so is that something that you want to do, especially going up against a one-sided torch?
With Ultron already on the board, the aerial domination is now secured by FaZe, giving themselves the torch and the Ultron. They now control the skies. Virtus Pro, they don't have a lot of options to deal with that. They're just going to have to go from some ground-to-air combat with stuff like Namor, with stuff like, of course, the Ultron going to be doing some good damage, and of course Phoenix, something that they have lent on extremely effectively up to now.
I do like the Luna Band, though. I do think that like Oasis has found a lot of value with it, and the protection onto the Star-Lord means that you have got probably the best option at dealing with that aerial threat the FaZe have really built around.
Star-Lord, one of the best duelist in the term of actual descriptors as opposed to the terms for categories in game. Star-Lord is so good at 1v1s because 1, they have invulnerability frames, and 2, those invulnerability frames give them bonus health, meaning that when you enter into a 1v1 for Star-Lord, if they can time their abilities right, they'll almost always 1v1 you.
And the Hulk ban at the end, I do feel like if we do see FaZe even taking this series, granted, it's seeding, granted, it's not the team that taking it seriously, it's just they're going to take the playoff qualifying games for Atlanta much more seriously is probably the best way to describe it. I gotta give the roses, or the roses, I suppose, to FaZe when it comes to their drafts, because their drafts are mechanically perfect. It just feels like sometimes you look for a draft and go, oh, they didn't ban out Hulk here, you know, so Namor, Hulk, just, oh, that's the obvious thing that they're going to go for. That could end up shafting you in the future. But it's the fact that, you know, they take and focus Invisible Woman, Ultron, they go for the EMEA, which is really popular on Convoy, and then take out the Strange at the end. It's like the icing on the cake, and I think that Hulk ban right at the end from FaZe could be the very same thing. Could be one of the reasons that they take this series in the losers bracket 3-0, but Virtus Pro, they're attacking first. They gotta show a little bit more bite.
We're about to find out, can Virtus Pro break through this opening? We did see a couple of the mines launched out to see if they could catch anyone early when they retreat. We'll see if anyone is able to get caught out by that. Whereas FaZe, kiting backwards against Virtus Pro, zoning away with the torch again. They have the aerial setup here. They've even brought out Binary on the Angela, so they have triple flyer this game, and then an entirely blonde ground crew.
The Blondes versus the Airheads is essentially this matchup then. Virtus Pro have found a good pick onto Leolus that was on the Ultron before. And now Smashed, as you can see him still trying to farm up that Supernova. He's got the Fire Prison on the ground that's doing a bit of chip damage, but I think it's also farming up the Strategist ultimates pretty nicely for Virtus Pro, who are taking this without much of a contest. They've bullied their way into FaZe's backline, and now it's just a case of players trying to jump on and really hold for some amount of time. An incredibly quick take from Virtus Pro.
This is what we're used to seeing. Virtus Pro, they take that convincingly. They find the first pickup, and now they're trying to capitalize. Should you make the most of the fact that they've already disjointed a couple of the respawns, taking out both the strategists on the backline and chasing everyone down into the choke point.
They know how to sort of take these fights when they have the advantage. It's not even just you get a pick and you can just keep pushing up, taking space. It's you get a pick and then nuclear missiles are fired at the opponent. They're even not afraid to use ultimates, especially Rage of Ultron, because it's so good at just creating that tempo. Getting out the invisible boundary here is great though, and it's going to be a bit of a Venn diagram for both sides. However, Leolus, with that Rage of Ultron used on the other side, once again to try to spin the momentum back into defensive hands. You have got an eternal bond for Oasis as and when needed, but also that Supernova. The side of seduction is looking up to the sky. It feels that Finzi has a good idea that the Human Torch ultimate is available.
This is what Virtus Pro can do, though. They can afford to burn ultimates because they have 4 minutes to go. FaZe, they have to be careful with how they stagger these. They burn Supernova first, and that is enough to get 5, but they have to hold on to literally everything else they have here in order to make this work. Drindro is forced to drop that Fate of Both Worlds, which is actually a pretty solid trade-up for FaZe, getting both the pickup and also that big strategist ultimate, but Rosa burning the Silent Seduction, not able to go for a trade here, which could be a little rough.
Meteor's going to be thrown down. Not going to catch on to much, but it at least forces Virtus Pro to disengage completely. It has to be another initiation and engagement to go for this fight, and Laylis isn't even going to allow that, just buying a little bit more time. But it was 5.5 minutes on the clock. You've whittled down an extra 2, but still 3.5 minutes, Tetra, for Virtus Pro to make something happen. They have an invisible boundary in hand and another side of seduction close for Finzi.
Already building back up. Leo once again gets sniped out. Nevix coming in there with the actual finishing blow, meaning that this is Virtus Pro's opportunity to try and make something happen. Here comes that Silent Seduction, like you called earlier. While they're invisible, they are still mind controlled. While Nevix waits for that invisible boundary to disappear, can pull the trigger for the main engage. Saipe does have a visible boundary of their own, so they can try and commit to a hard engage here. And here it comes. Boundary. Nevix into the backline with 5 from the front, and they are picking them off one by one. Virtus Pro make their way towards Bast's Temple.
And just as Smashdance gets our Supernova, so that's a really nice invisible boundary from Saipe to just allow a little bit more freedom to get aggressive. And Virtus Pro, outside of that support ultimate, didn't really have to do all that much else. They have 4 more to work with after the Silent Seduction was also used. And FaZe, they're close to having some stuff, but it's whether Virtus Pro give them the space to work with it.
Yeah, Virtus Pro are literally just cruising through right now. Here gets a range of Ultron from Sparker, mirrored by Leo, fighting in the choke point, making sure that both of their front lines are kept topped up. Not able to find any initial blow-ups here as the Imperative Patch is sent from Sparker onto Nevix. 5 Galactic Legends, but an eternal bond from Oasis is going to sustain through that, and they will not find any pickups and forced to retreat as the Silent Seduction comes on out.
He's managed to force back yet again for Virtus Pro. Despite the fact that FaZe didn't actually get any picks, I think, in that fight, it has made sure that Virtus Pro on this attack have to back off and reconsider. And the Fate of Both Worlds sort of used in this neutral fight is an odd one. The Supernova might have forced it out. Meteor M, that's audacious for Binary to think if he could hit that, but it would have been crazy. It's more the case of just forcing out more from Virtus Pro, despite the fact that things aren't really moving at all.
Trying to make something happen. Finzi just got multiple people with that Silent Seduction, but invisible boundary from Winnie once again saved them. Rosa is going to fall here as Saipe makes one, picks them off with the melee, in fact. Slashness trying to just punish people who step through that main doorway, but Nevix is already so far through the main doorway that they're essentially in the enemy spawn, trying to make something happen, trying to zone out the members of FaZe, and it's working. The cart is moving forward again, and FaZe are just being forced to wait and regroup.
Laylis having another Rage of Ultron. These fights for Virtus Pro have been so long, there's not really been a start or an end to them, which means that for Triple Strategist, you're farming up ultimates very consistently. The Rage of Ultron is more, again, a case for Virtus Pro to be forced back, and the response from Sparker is going to allow maybe that final bit of engagement. Unfortunately, however, one of your main duelists has gone down. You're able to trade onto the backline onto Oasis. It's really now what the Vanguards could do. Virtus Pro do have these 2 big ultimate Silent Seductions going to be used first, Feast of the Abyss afterwards. Is it going to try and catch on to Smash This? It's actually Sparker that does it.
Nez is pulled on it, slowed down by the Venom while being zoned away with Silent Seduction, means they had nowhere to move or react. The invisible boundary is keeping FaZe in this, matched immediately by the Eternal Bond as they try to chase back Virtus Pro, but Virtus Pro know that every defensive tool has been used, so if they can kite this back, then they can just go for a re-engage once everything expires, but they can't. They've lost Finzi, and that's going to force a regroup. Finzi, though, has decided that the regroup may in fact be inside the actual objective point, as Portal is coming on in.
It's a good play. I don't know if FaZe are going to really expect this, but the Rage of Ultron has been used, so it gives you some way to adjust to this. Silent Seduction even turning around to see if they can get a focus in. The invisible boundaries made things a little bit harder for FaZe to get a grip on what's happening here. Binary caught out CC, dunked on by the Star-Lord on the other side of... It would be fired this race. Sparker having the Rage of Ultron is going to throw this out as well, and you can just sort of see the FaZe now trying to give a little bit of respect to this engagement, but not enough respect at all as another strategist goes down.
Remember, there are no defensive tools left available for FaZe. They've lost all of their strategist ultimates and now both of their strategists. So it's all about the health bars and just trying to delay as best they can. Fincy now off of the Strange after being picked off has moved on to Captain America for speed. And this is just now going to be a one-by-one feed onto the point of bodies trying to hold. Here comes one more from Binary. They're taken down before they can even resilience. And Smashness cannot make it with the Flaming Meteor dash.
It's finishing the map on time. Less than a minute, so it would be 1:40 total that Virtus.pro would have to work with, seeing with what happens to FaZe. Because they have to finish out the map completely in order to try and match it. Otherwise, we are going to the 4th map of this best of 5, and all of the game modes open up again for FaZe. So it's not the worst position to be in. But I'd say that in some of those moments, Virtus.pro taking really clean fights to begin with, but it was stalled out a decent amount that there's only, what, like just over 90 seconds for Virtus.pro to work with if we go for another run of their attack inside.
Let's see if FaZe can do it. They need to push all the way in, and it looks like they're going a little bit more aggressive. Not going with the traditional, as Psylocke does make a return, the traditional Psylocke into that, of course, we already mentioned Venom combination that we saw earlier. Binary is currently hovering us at Angela. This is a map where there are environmental pickup points, but more importantly, your opponents are running an extremely good Invisible Woman, and being able to take her out of her own ultimate is a game changer.
Key thing to be playing around. Multiple players from Virtus.pro haven't been eliminated at all on that attacking side. I think 3 out of the 6. One of which being Nevix in the main Vanguard line. I think Spark has also had a pretty good showing, sort of playing that tertiary strategist, bit of duelist role. He's going to continue on with the Ultron, which that pivot I think has done a lot to give them that offensive option. But also knowing that you don't have to deal with Winnie on the Jeff means that frankly, it just gives you a bit more of a window to work with.
It certainly seems to be working for them. We have the team up coming on in. The Astral Jump with Oasis bringing in that rocket, allowing Leo to get out of danger after they wrap into the backline, blast a barrage, and back to freedom.
Does force out Virtus.pro a couple of defensive options. Ooh, it's very low as well from Smashness, just potting away with his damage on the Jean Grey. It's not going to be enough, actually, to find a pick for FaZe. And Virtus.pro, they're typically very good in these convergence game modes when they can position, set up crossfires, and make sure that strategists can farm up efficiently with this ult charge to get going. And it's a little bit more scrappy now. It does seem that FaZe are starting to strong-arm their way into this engagement, but they take out Binary. One of those main entry points and engages onto the fight for FaZe is out, and it seems that they're just completely trying to disengage. If it wasn't for the Rage of Ultron and Yan Amplifier, it suggests the opposite.
They're pulling the trigger, deciding to make the play, trying to focus out the backline. Winnie zoning onto those strategists, forcing out the fate of both worlds from Dridro, which will likely prevent this push from coming in any further, at least at this stage, as they wait for something else to combo off of this Smashness End Song Inferno, or they're just going to pull the trigger. Caster Curse continues. Smashness takes out Cypher. Sparker goes down to Winnie in the bot 1v1 as Dridro falls, and it looks like FaZe are getting huge percentage on this, but Fire's already on Strange and is setting up the portal.
It's up on the high ground though, so it's not actually contesting the point. But Smashness gets caught in transit essentially, so more time is stalled out. Even if Virtus.pro don't win this fight, their main job is to just buy as much time as possible. 2 minutes on the clock. Whittling it down means that you have less to work with for second and third, and it's going to force out more of these attacking ultimates, including Galactic Legend, which Laylis is just going to wait out.
Not able to move in, doesn't want to get picked off, but already Rosa and Binary falls. Virtus.pro burning through yet another push. 2 points already picked up by FaZe, but Virtus.pro all finding actually Leolaz as they were on the wraparound, and that's going to massively stagger them away from the rest of the team.
It's just going to stall more time. It means that Leolaz has to be... He can fly, so he can get around the map and get to somewhere safe, but it is just going to waste more seconds on the clock for FaZe. And now the dive is a little bit more uncomfortable. It is just pretty much walking straight onto the point. You see the leaping and the diving from Binary, but the sign of seduction and all of the CC, even that Agamotto is going to be thrown in his general direction, means that whilst he's still alive, it is enough people going down on the side of FaZe that really there's going to be more of an awkward engagement on the point if it wasn't for Nevix.
Huge pickup by Winnie though, chasing down Sparker, also able to get their pickup onto Dridro, and suddenly FaZe are beginning to capitalize. Smashnez respawning will be arriving back very quickly. Phoenix is a pretty fast rollout, and FaZe will grab that first point, but significantly slower. Time is not on their side.
It pretty much was 5.5 minutes to 2.5 minutes, maybe even 1.5 minutes for FaZe. It's not the end of the world. But if you want to try and match a decent time that Virtus Pro have managed, you're going to have to really work for it on this second point. Virtus Pro looking to try and engage, again, just force out more and more engagements. And Nevix is usually quite good at getting out of these fights. There's no invisible woman on the side of FaZe to really pull them back in and punish them. But Thai has gone down in the process as well, loses the fight against Laylas.
Winnie has been on the Invisible Woman the majority of these games, or on the Jeff, now on the Ultron, is playing like a duelist and doing an extremely good job of it. Binary into the front line as well, trying to create more openings. They've been putting so much pressure onto these strategists, forcing out ultimates. Dridro, Fade of both worlds, they're going to try and make something happen, but it is traded for the Rage of Ultron from Winnie, who is currently just being tracked down by Sparker.
Fade of both worlds used for Virtus Pro. There's the Galactic Legend following Meteor M. Warding off on the side of FaZe as 4 ultimates were used. Yan, Amplified, Galactic Legend, and Feast of the Abyss, but nothing is actually starting to show up in the elimination feed. Up until now, Rosa does get the pick onto Nevix on the other side. The Vanguard line is a little bit weaker for the time being, but Smashnez now, the Psylocke was really impactful on that first map of domination. The Dance of Butterflies not getting much, but they're back in the fight off the Be Right Back.
Trying to keep this contest going as they make their way forward. The Statue of Fast almost at the temple, but Virtus Pro are all here. It's not like when they pushed in and FaZe were very disjointed, forced inside the temple. Virtus Pro are actually grouped up. They can try and contest this, but the high ground actually belongs to FaZe right now, taking control of these bridges to rain down pain from above. Here comes the dive from Binary, going to get locked down. Rage of Ultron to keep them topped up. Sparker mirroring from the other side. Media M finds nothing from Fincy, and Sparker is just being forced to get the healing output. Winnie going to be losing the 1v1, will go down. It looks like Virtus Pro will hold.
Minute left for FaZe. It might not even be that much time to work with because they're still being stalled out. Rosa tries to escape quietly, but unfortunately gets jumped on from Virtus Pro. So now, more time being whittled apart whilst they wait for that Vanguard to come back in this engagement. You've got Smashnez that's diving in and taking a bit of an engagement, mostly just farming up that extra bit of ult charge for the Dance of the Butterflies. Has it available, but I think wants to be holding on to it. Certainly after Dridro uses that Fate of both worlds, maybe even the Invisible Boundary.
30 seconds remain. FaZe need to pull the trigger. Dance of the Butterfly. No Feast from the Abyss for the one-shot combo, though. They're just trying to keep the team split up, but they force out the Fate of both worlds. Feast from the Abyss now going to be coming out. The Ensong Inferno trying to blow up Oasis's ult, which they will be able to burn the rest of the way through. And now it's all about zoning. FaZe have burned everybody. What a freeze! That may have just saved Virtus Pro as Dridro melts through Leo, who's trying to find anyone, but is completely zoned off of the point. Here comes the final ultimate. Here, Winnie with the Rage of Ultron and Meteor M from Rosa. They take down 2. Smashnez in the backline, and it's forcing a massive zoning, which will mean FaZe get an extra minute on the board.
Yeah, they're able to actually hit the checkpoint despite there being players from Virtus Pro around the engagement. And FaZe, you know, some of the coordination with ultimates not quite hitting, like you sort of mentioned with the Dance of the Butterflies, Feast of the Abyss. But that's sort of expected, I think. When you're just on the verge of winning a series like this, you're going to try to really speed up the process, not make any mistakes. But it means that our coordination wasn't quite there. Virtus Pro, however, also suffering the same fate. A little bit more of a mad scramble on the point meant that things got a little bit out of hand, and it allowed FaZe to just push onto the extra bit. It's going to be impossible for them to try to match or do a better time than Virtus Pro on their attack, but I think they're just going to take trying to finish the map at this rate because Virtus Pro have wiped them again.
Running out of time. They need to try and get their way back to the point. Immediately, Fincy coming out for the zoning potential, trying to make sure that this fight does not happen on the objective, to force someone to move their way out of position in case of a respawn. Oasis building their way back towards a battle rebirth beacon so that they can try and keep this fight going a little bit longer, but they have to wait for Leo, meaning that they have about 20 seconds left.
A lot of damage being taken, and nobody can afford to go down now for FaZe. It would be too much of a detriment, and it would be the first map in this best of 5 going in favor of Virtus Pro. Rage of Ultron allowing Winnie to send his team into the fray, and also forces out the Endsong Inferno and the Fate of Both Worlds from Virtus Pro. 2 of the 4 ultimates they have available used now, but they found a pick already onto Binary, who had the Feast of the Abyss in hand.
But it is Venom, one of the quicker rollouts. They can make their way back in. Invisible Boundary forced out, traded with that Galactic Legend, but also traded with the Cosmic Yard Amplifier. Cyber pulls Leo's out of position. They get the blow-up, meaning it's down to Smashnets. Rosa, Oasis, they're going to try and hold it. Meteor M to find the backline. It takes nothing. Meaning Sparker is raining down pain with this Rage of Ultron onto the point. Feeding the Abyss into the backline, allowing Smashnets to take out Cyber, but they've got to keep people on the board. Smashnets now falls. And it's Fi doing huge work. One by one, the members of FaZe are falling, but they're still fighting, Ryan.
They're just putting whatever they can onto the point, and a Rage of Ultron, if they just have enough people to touch, it's really starting to dwindle, and it's over for Winnie. It's over for FaZe on Horse of Jalia from the looks, as the port play is going to allow some people at least to be touching on the side of FaZe, but it's not enough. Virtus Pro eventually getting onto the board in this best of 5 and showing a bit more fight to stop FaZe taking the 3-0.
2-1 is the score. Like you say, Virtus Pro creeping onto the board with a 3-2 finish, holding inside the temple, not even at the main doorway, in that actual spawn room where people have to rush out quickly. They actually contested that in the center halls. So very nicely done by Virtus Pro, and you were starting to see the value of that Jeff ban.
And the Ultron just seemed to be a lot more comfortable, because it was like the protects onto Jeff first for both sides in the last map, and it just feels that suits Winnie a lot more. In the Ultron battle, you got Leolis that had to switch over to stuff like Star-Lord, and I think Winnie picked it up even at a point. It was just like Sparker's going to win those kind of matchups pound for pound in most cases. Was it the cleanest map for Virtus Pro? Did it leave me with a couple of concerns? Yeah, it was definitely an awkward one. But FaZe are good enough to actually force good teams to play some muddy Marvel rivals, to be honest. And I still think that there's a couple more tricks up their sleeve to show as we get further into the map pool. And now they have the map choice. They could choose anything type-wise, just they can't go and bid him T'Challa, Arako, or Jalia, as we've just seen.
Very true. We basically reset how the maps is, but everything is now available. So where will FaZe try to take us to close this out? But Virtus Pro, it's gonna feel good. After, like you say, quite a few maps lost in a row, this is the beginning of a recovery. Just knowing that you can still take maps, that you have what it takes, even though, like you say, neither team it was especially clean, but a win is a win, and it's a great momentum starter.
It's also just good reps, right? The seeding game, so it's a good chance to show what is happening. But we're going to see where FaZe might want to try and finish off this series, or whether Virtus Pro are going to take us to a full 5-mapper in this losers bracket final after a quick break. So we'll see you in a second.
I want your soul! Hell unleashed!
The argument that Virtus Pro aren't winning was just a phase, it seems, as they have managed to make their way back into this series, currently setting us at 2-1 in favour of FaZe. But this could be the beginning of a reverse sweep, Ryan.
It could be. It could be the chance for a little bit more of a fight back from Virtus Pro and a little bit of a chance and a challenge, which is something that, like, as an Iron Fist fan, I sort of like the whole trials and tribulations side. So when I heard the name Xiao Lao mentioned in the sort of recent stuff, and a map coming to Kunlun as well in the future, you can bet your bottom dollar that I was interested in this one. And also, it's Xiao Lao being very generous, which I was looking at the lore very quickly for Xiao Lao, and it's kind of brutal. He basically is he's immortal, but he gets defeated by each of the iterations of Iron Fist. So he's kind of just getting, like, his butt kicked frequently, but he's generous enough to give us some goodies in-game as well.
The slumbering of Xiao Lao has awakened, much like the slumbering of Virtus Pro. Remember, you can jump in already. Now it's started as of 2 days ago, going all the way to October 9th. Play different missions, play different game modes to earn points, which you can use to, well, continuously get all these wonderful rewards that our beautiful devs are providing us. But speaking of rewards, there's prize money on the line, Ryan, as Virtus Pro look to try and even up the score.
You want to see if they can maintain their position as one of the top teams coming out of this group. A third seed would be just weird, wouldn't it? It'd feel off. But now there's a chance for FaZe, and I think it's a smart map. You go into Domination again. All of the different types of game modes within Marvel Rivals have opened up to be used again, and it's not only a game mode that FaZe have looked good in so far, and they kind of destroyed Virtus Pro in that first one that we saw earlier, Benim T'Challa, but also Virtus Pro historically have had the roughest time on Domination.
Yes, they have. So adding it back in. This is FaZe trying to make a statement. Speaking of making a statement, no more fish. Once again, Jeff is banned away. Virtus Pro immediately securing themselves that Ultron again, though. It gave them some very good help last time.
It's the Mantis ban. Similar draft so far with what we saw on Virtus Pro's win on Djalia. This was an Ultron Protect last time, but instead they're going to go for the Mantis, which I kind of like. It feels, again, like that Ultron versus Ultron very much favors Spark from Virtus Pro. So going somewhere different means that you are going to get a one-sided Ultron in favor of Virtus Pro, but you're up against a one-sided Mantis.
Very interesting. This does mean that Virtus Pro can try to control the sky. Not going to be allowed, though. We're going to see Virtus Pro take away the Adam Warlock to prevent a double strategist on that bottom line, allowing Mantis to damage boost Adam, Adam to keep people healed up and revived, and then picking a Luna or an Invisible Woman to make up the healing numbers. While FaZe, they just want to make sure that that Ultron does not dominate the airways. Virtus Pro, though, they do still have the opening for a Star-Lord to fill in that gap.
I think that's a good protect on Luna as well, because it was the fourth ban last time for Virtus Pro. We sort of highlighted that, you know, fourth bans from FaZe were good with the Strange on Arako and then the Hulk on Djalia. But that lack of healing was definitely a difference maker for FaZe. It seemed that they couldn't stay afloat, and there's not going to be any Torch available. It's been a while since we've seen the double ban on Torch used in a draft like this, but it makes sense on a map like Celestial Husk with the amount of cover that you can use and fly around.
It's like a return to form here, but there is that Star-Lord, as we talked about. Virtus Pro, making sure they have a little bit of aerial dominance, even if we do see the removal of those torches. So now FaZe, are they potentially worried about the rise of Rocket? Are they worried about the safety that the Star-Lord now has to teleport out if teams decide to go that way? Especially as Rocket and Ultron did seem to be working quite well, but nope, they're going to stick to standard, removing some of the big burst heal, and of course, Guardian Barrier, which can help protect against one, the kind of wombos FaZe like to run, and two, help protect Ultron while they're in the air.
And there's been some good adjustments to the draft. There is also the chance for Virtus Pro to bring out the Adam Warlock if they want. They do have the Ultron alongside, so it is a one-sided Adam as well as the likes of a one-sided Ultron versus a one-sided Mantis. Yeah, and Virtus Pro also still have access to the Lunar Snow. That's not been banned out against them whilst it was protected on the other side. So it feels like there's more available because the draft was more focused on making sure that Human Torch wasn't allowed to be played.
Very true. We've got a lot of options here, focusing on to some of the duelists as opposed to the usual bans, which are mostly focused around strategists. And then a couple times we'll see vanguards like the EMEA, which again has kind of just stopped being banned again, appeared for a couple games, and is now being allowed through.
I'd say Tetra for this, like, even though it's a seeding game, there's still enough spice to it that it's like interesting.
Oh, sure.
It makes me like, just bring on next week, bring on playoffs where it's like the ride or dies of these teams' careers in Marvel Rivals really hit that climax at the end of Ignite to go to Atlanta. But this is just a great tester to show what teams are thinking of. And Fi is on the magic. Fi is on the magic. He is on the magic. He's on the magic.
They've got magic. They've got the team of his triple strategist, solo duelist magic with the Doctor Strange Order of Might and Magic team up. And they are about to try and just roll through FaZe. But FaZe, they do have the Hulk and they do have the Namor. So they have defensive tools. Problem is, not going to be as lucky for characters like the Mantis and the Lunar Snow, who might just get blown up.
How nice.
Yeah, you got lots of targets in the air, at least for Fi to try and gun for. Rose is the first one to go down, so Vanguard mitigating some of the damage is going to be a little bit more precarious for FaZe. But Rose has switched over to the Strange almost instantly. Is he just going to try and portal back in, feeling that this fight is possibly the most important to go in and engage for? It's not a bad one, realistically, because there is FaZe getting a couple of picks on their end. The problem is that you've got the life cocoons and the like for Virtus Pro. That means that nobody's gone down and everybody's still here engaging. All 6 players for Virtus Pro are fighting this.
Smashness just had an incredible round, but the rest of their team was going down around them. They got completely outnumbered, and they will be forced off the point, finally getting taken out. Virtus Pro will get first cap. Binary has moved over to the Angela. If your opponents are going to play something that wants to try and fight in melee, try and pick them off. But Virtus Pro, they've already brought out the Star-Lord, which also Angela will do okay into, assuming they can avoid those iframes.
This is a hell of a pivot. 4 or 5 players maybe changing up the characters that they were on, including the Angela again. Binary did a lot of pretty hefty work in this game mode in the qualifying game. And now for Virtus Pro, it feels like it's going to require a little bit more to try to nail this one down. Rosa, again, the first elimination against FaZe as these fights are starting means that Virtus Pro are really just farming up this point for free currently.
Call Virtus Pro Charles for how much they seem to be able to just get onto this Rosa, get the harass in and get those early pickups. Fi will go down to smash this though, who has that silo, that massive burst. But if they're not careful, Nevix and Ayavagamoto can try and turn this round with the revive from Saipe, bringing back both members who have already been taken out. Nevix falls and will immediately get revived. Virtus Pro extend this fight out after FaZe are burning a lot of their resources. There's that Ayavagamoto, and FaZe do not have the Adam to bring themselves back from this.
Not when there's 4 ultimates consecutively happening from Virtus Pro. It was just as FaZe were maybe going to take the point, and they still can, to be fair. They've got more players on the objective, but it's been stalled out by the 2 in Virtus Pro that's just touching down. You got a Galactic Legend used from FaZe that's trying to get in behind what Virtus Pro are doing, but nobody has been eliminated. Virtus Pro have held on, and it's 90% on the board.
Vinci zoning away Rosa, forcing them off the point. Nevix dropped low, but will sustain. And yeah, this is just Binary coming in with the Heaven's Descent to try and turn this round, looking everyone onto a single point. Binary with the flip on overtime.
Heaven sent from FaZe to just clear up everything from Virtus Pro, but because they're at 99%, they're almost happy to be cleared out together. Certainly after big ultimates were dedicated, there's not too much that really allows FaZe to hold on here, and a lot that are building on the positive side for Virtus Pro. Rage of Ultron for Sparker is the main one, but I think that that's going to be used a little bit closer to the point when Virtus Pro are ready to go for this maybe final engage.
The Heaven's Retribution setting up, but it's a big cooldown, already up to 32%, but that's a long way away when Cypher's already at 82% for Karmic Revival. They try to contest on through Binary, entering into melee, but being forced to back away. Finds Nevix, a little bit of crowd control, but Venom is, of course, so hard to take down. Fi keeping the pressure on, trying to get onto Rosa. Rage of Ultron from Sparker forces out Soul Rejuvenation. That's an absolutely worthy trade.
It's the right kind of pressure that you want to be adding in, and it does force out the portal play quite early on in this engagement. There's still 50% for FaZe that they have to try and get before even overtime's considered. Oasis, I don't know if they're going to be back in time to use the portal as Smashness was able to place, so I think that they're going to have to just walk on their little toes to try and get back into this fight. Virtus Pro also using the Silent Seduction, nothing off the back of it, but the Galactic Legend from Leolas is at least farming a couple more picks in favor of FaZe whilst they're holding on, but it's going to be used on the other side. Fire trying to go in for the Angela, but a lot of this damage is being blocked. Eyes in the sky, it's still not enough as the Angel is sent down to the ground, and Camera Revival is in the back pocket of Virtus Pro if this fight goes awry.
We're at 81%. This is all right now. A lot of delays from FaZe, but now they have no portal. Virtus Pro, they're going to be able to get the flip as overtime starts to tick on down. No one is even close from FaZe as Virtus Pro take round one.
Might just be the difference of not having the Jeff in the servers here, because Virtus Pro changed it up a lot. FaZe at least fighting back in some elements, but just everything feels a lot more succinct, a bit more warmed up, I'd say, for Virtus Pro.
Looking at the stats right now, Fincy is sitting at 5 and 2. Saipe in the backline on that Adam Warlock, still charged up with the ult. They've won that round without it. Binary, though, going to be sticking with the Angela, has Heaven's Retribution ready for at least one more attempt at a Wombo to get that quick blow up. But if they don't get Adam, then Virtus Pro will just hit the undo button.
Let's see if there's much of a change up from Virtus Pro. Seems to be the same sort of comp.
Sorry, I thought I saw Saipe swap off, but it was Sparker. My screen's just a bit far away.
I mean, we are far away from those guys as well, so I mean, to be fair. Starting to see them roll out a bit more now, but FaZe, they don't want this series to go even for Virtus Pro, because going into that final 5th map, it does feel like the momentum would swing into the initial favorites. And Smashness dedicating onto this Psylocke was one of the main win conditions in that Benim T'Challa domination win that we saw from FaZe earlier. Hasn't had the same impact yet, but we'll see.
Binary unable to find the isolation. Those iframes have been a little bit too valuable, but this Angela is getting some pretty solid value so far. Making their way onto the point. Rage of Ultron carving out. They're going to try and get into position to block it, but it's already a pickup onto Leo.
I mean, it seemed the FaZe were just trying to force out whatever ultimates or big cooldowns Virtus Pro had. Getting the Rage of Ultron's good, but losing out on 2 players in the process isn't great. You got the Fate of Both Worlds used, and then the Dance of the Butterflies on the other side. So FaZe were in, what, a 4 versus 6, and then they're dedicating 2 big ultimates to try and keep this going, including the Heaven's Descent. So more is being thrown in, but I think the numbers are still in favor of Virtus Pro currently.
Nevix keeping the harassment onto the backline. Leo's being chased, trying to chase down 5, but 5's already out of there. Vinci looking for anyone on the flank for a quick blow-up, just trying to lock them down with that Silent Seduction, but can't seem to do so. Vi, on the other hand, has found a lovely grouped up set of enemies. Will get a double, but will get finished off by Leo in the 1v1, but Leo now does not have a lot of protection. Is going to commit, though, to this fight with their own Galactic Legend. Has to change their attention onto the front line, but it's enough, melting through those tanks.
Camera Revival's going to bring back pretty much everybody for Virtus Pro, so the Galactic Legend for Leolas is not really going to find all that much success. The point eventually does go in the hands on Virtus Pro, so it was a good contest in the end. It really meant that Virtus Pro were farming up to 20, 30, even 40% at this point. But for FaZe, you end up losing the fight, but you still have some other good ultimates to rely on. It's not too far away from another Dance of the Butterflies. But if you're going to use it in combination with that Feast of the Abyss, Rosa needs to farm up some more of that ult.
They've abandoned it. They've moved over to Smashness to the G Grey, bringing out the Phoenix Force. So now their combos are stuff like Heaven's Retribution into Phoenix, into the Endsong Inferno, or into Feast of the Abyss. In the meantime, Leo, they're just going for picking off stragglers.
Damage boost as well from Oasis, so there's plenty of things to break for the breakpoint of a Fate of Both Worlds, which is available for Dreedra now, and you've already lost Nevix, so is that going to be tempoed? Is it going to be used in this case? It is. You do have Spark with the Rage of Ultron, might want to be using this. And typically it's before the big ultimates like Fate of Both Worlds, but now the order is the opposite. Now FaZe see that there's a chance and an opportunity. Heaven's Descent pretty much holding those players in that little cubby. But nobody from Virtus Pro, surprisingly, is going down up until the focus from Smashness and when he comes in.
Winnie actually picking up both the final hits there. The retribution pays off, and divine judgment from Binary is melting on through, bringing out that bonus damage, and it is
the ball play
allowing an attempt at a flip, but they're delaying for so long. Sparker, they realize they're on 76%. They can try and get to 99 if they can hold this for just a little bit longer. They're happy to sacrifice a portal at this stage. Ends of Inferno directly onto Virtus Pro. Saipei falls, Gridro falls, but all this time, the point continues to tick. Virtus Pro are delaying this expertly right now. They know they lose this fight. They know they cannot sustain through this, but they got that point to 96, 97.
Pretty much all the way to the end to sort of push for overtime. And Sparker could switch off the Strange because, I mean, the portal's been in play. It's not going to be used for potentially the rest of this map, potentially the third point. So he goes back over towards the Ultron. Now it's a question of farming up whatever you can. FaZe already have a lot to rely on, and they're going to try to beat the punch with this Galactic Legend. But Silent Seduction is going to silence him, bring him back a little bit more, but he's still able to get the pick onto Dredro whilst all of that is going on.
That's a pretty big pickup, though. Taking out Saipei when they did not have Cocoon guarantees that FaZe will keep this point for at least a little bit longer. But Saipei is now charged up. Cocoon is still going to be quite on cooldown. It won't be back for a while. So it's now about Saipei's positioning. If FaZe get zoned back to the point and Virtus Pro are able to take a good fight, then they might be able to get a revive and flip this back over and guarantee themselves a fifth map. Here comes Galactic Legend 4-5, trying to pick off some of the people on the outskirts here. Binary barely getting away from this.
There's not really too much cover for FaZe to be working with, but they use it perfectly to stop that Galactic Legend finding too much. It still means that Fate of Both Worlds is going to be forced out, and now you've got the Endsong Inferno, Beast of the Abyss combination through the Fate of Both Worlds on the other side from Virtus Pro. It's not enough. And whilst it was 98% on the board for Virtus Pro, FaZe from 0 brought this to 70. Now things are starting to feel a little bit more tetchy, but if the players start to go down from Virtus Pro, there was a karmic revival. There is a life cocoon for Saipei, but it is only Sparker that's gone down at this point. Surely you don't want to use the ultimate here. He is. He's going to hot tempo this one.
They're going to try and take this Heaven's Retribution onto the point. It isolates the backliners, meaning that they can focus onto the front line. A big dive. Winnie falls. Saipei is down. The revives are over. No more resurrections. But the point... They
went on it.
Get back onto it. Venom, Nevik snuck onto the point, and FaZe didn't contest it.
You know, the thing that I was about to say was, in these kind of moments, this is where mistakes start to show. Case in point, what we just saw there, because that was almost a fight that it's not necessarily that it would have gone FaZe's way verbatim, but they were still in that one. Like, that felt a very awkwardly forced counter revival from Sparker, and if off the back of that Heaven's Judgment from Binary, that could have been a harrowing mistake for Virtus Pro if they got it wrong. But in the end, FaZe, despite having 2 or 3 players still left alive, weren't able to actually touch the point, so it didn't go to OT.
Yeah, they got 3 people in the Heaven's Retribution, but they were so focused on actually just going in and trying to keep people zoned off the point that no one of the rest of their team was on the point, and Binary was unable to touch. They were too far away. They were busy. And as such, Nevix with the MVP play, able to touch that point and get the flip.
They're able to sort of steal it through. I have to say, now that we've seen a few examples of play from them, Angela seems like a great addition to the roster. And I don't really think the teams have touched the levels that Binary's been able to do, or really touched the levels of what Binary and Angela in these kind of comps can provide for a team.
It's making some good value, the ability to isolate and chase down people, the ability to try and harass the flyers, and of course, that incredible zoning. While Heaven's Retribution, the center spear can actually be destroyed, so you can shut down and prevent people getting isolated. It is still so good just to have people for that small amount of time, and then of course the burst damage that it can actually offer could be pretty impactful, coming down into that melee form with the axes of, I believe it's pronounced Icus or Icus, I'm not 100% sure, but the damage output's not terrible. You can actually get some really good harassment onto the backline, and the fact is, you're one of the easiest characters to get to the backline along with Venom.
Yeah, I mean, it's just good tech, good use of stuff, and there's so much like going on with a kit, you know, the recharging of the spears, so you want to fly to somebody, hit them with the spear, charge into them, because then it recharges faster. I feel like those elements haven't necessarily been played with too much with Angela, but it means that this full best of 5 is going to reach its 5th map to see who's going to be going up against Na'Vi in the upper bracket final of these groups. Is it going to be Na'Vi going for the reverse sweep, or is FaZe going to surprise us all with a little bit more action? Yet to be seen. We're going to go for a quick break, so we'll see you in a few. Welcome back to stage 2 of EMEA. We've moved on to best of 5s, and we get to see the full breadth of what this format can do for close series like this. FaZe took a pretty surprising 2-0 lead up against Virtus Pro in this series, but the recent champions of MRC have brought it back to honors even. One last map to define what's going to happen for the upper bracket a little bit later on, Tetcher.
Winner goes on to play against Na'Vi for number 1 seed. Loser is locked in at seed number 3 for the group, which can be pretty impactful because that means you will be playing against the second place from the other group, which could be pretty scary because that's either going to be Citadel or Chopped.
Sorry, I also noticed that Kingpin's fallen over, so I need to
rescue
fix him up. I mean, again, I think it's the lack of Spider-Man, I think. And Daredevil's on the horizon, so I guess he's just sleeping in to check on that. But there's no sleeping in this series. Yes, it's seeding. There's the asterisks attached to it every single time. Even from coaches like Salah from Citadel Gaming being like, it doesn't matter. I can guarantee from the 10 years I've had in this industry, these games do matter. And this ban on the Jeff to begin with, Tetcher, has made a big difference for Virtus Pro in this series.
Marine life is despised by these teams now. Neither one wanting to give the others a chance. Virtus Pro once again going to get their hands on Ultron. FaZe once again with the opportunity to either secure themselves a Mantis or an Ultron. Neither they secure Luna.
That makes sense, I think, because whilst going to Central Park, it really does feel like FaZe have been wanting to sort of push for that triple strategist. The 2-2-2 did work well for them, and it's something that we started to see Virtus Pro do a little bit more. They didn't do it in that last map, but we did see them ban out the Luna. And the reason why they didn't ban out the Luna in the last map is because it was second protected. So I think this is just FaZe making sure that their backline isn't completely turned apart, because Fate Both Worlds is damn important in these fights.
I do like this by FaZe, though, getting a one-sided Star-Lord on their side. They've been getting some good value for that. I wouldn't have minded if they protected something like a Mantis on their own side, or even just any other strategist could be protecting the Invisible Woman to guarantee that double safe backline. But in this case, they prefer that Star-Lord. Leo's been playing it incredibly well, and they want to get Fi off it because they've also been putting on a clinic.
It's hard to beat even a Star-Lord protect. I'm glad that you highlighted it earlier, certainly at the start of this series. We're just
I got really lucky with that.
Yeah, because I don't think so, because it does feel like people are starting to realize that Star-Lord is the real thing, that if you don't have access to him, no matter the comp, you're just going to feel very down on the damage that you're outputting. But the protect onto Human Torch, this is a fantastic map for him. Maybe even his best map overall with what they can do.
Maybe.
And you've got the Torch and the Ultron combination. So aerial fights, but there is no Hulk ban. So maybe Namor could be in play. And the protection of the Star-Lord really comes in clutch here too.
Also, the reaction from FaZe banning out the Invisible Woman as the final bad Guardian barrier, really effective at keeping these flyers protected. And of course, the Fantastic Force, which will allow the Human Torch to have even more self-sustain, along with that Flaming Meteor bonus health.
Central Park is the deciding factor in this best of 5. The loser goes on to play playoffs next week as the 3rd seed out of this group. The winner plays again tomorrow in another best of 5 up against Na'Vi. That ex-Rad roster has done pretty well, it's fair to say. World champions at the mid-season finals in China. I'd say, pretty good. Passable, for sure.
Well, both these teams not just looking for the seeding position, they are attempting to earn the best chance they can to qualify for those global finals, heading to a map based on America for a LAN based in America.
Not quite Atlanta though. I wonder if Atlanta has some nice parks. This is the wrong segue to take right now, as the fight is pretty much instantly happening. Binary is being shot down out of the sky, wanted to go aggressive, and it's Finzi that gets the slam onto him. It was an aggressive play to go that deep and fight that hard for FaZe, but if this doesn't really rectify itself quickly, Virtus.pro might be taking this Convergence first point very fast.
That's 3 down, 4 down, and suddenly Virtus.pro are on the point. Strange is available, but do they even try? Do they just regroup and attempt to fight a little bit later? Because this is so fast. And yep, that's point 1.
Binary punished. And everybody else clambering afterwards. Yeah, you're right. FaZe were not wanting to engage on that one early. They wanted to try and set themselves up in a nice position to fight here. It's similar to what we saw on Jalia. And that was one of the maps that Virtus.pro was able to get onto the board to bring this back to a full BO5. And Nevix is not afraid to keep this going. I don't think FaZe have got an elimination at all so far on this map, and it just seems to be tallying more towards VP.
Players on the flank, we're seeing if they can get onto 5, but there's just too much pressure here. Sparker making sure that they're covered so they can keep this incredible aggression going. Finally, the cart will be stopped, and it starts again.
It started again, yeah. I mean, it's been a weird day for Virtus.pro. Maybe it's just because it's a bit later in the day that sort of the wolf is out a little bit more, you know what I mean? And they've still not really had much ultimates really to expend. I think they've still been farming it up as Rage of Ultron for Sparker is available yet again. It's Supernova is not quite there for 5, but it's not really been needed. This objective is still moving slowly. One player's on it, but FaZe are held in the choke point, and Assault Resurgence is required to just help them engage and fight this actual objective.
They brought out the Groot and Storm to try and just get a little bit of damage boost, a little bit of speed boost onto the point to try and sustain this. Rosa on the Groot as well. We'll have the Wild Wall to keep the team topped up. The Omega Hurricane finds nothing. Rosa falls. Winnie falls. The tree has been burned down. The Legend is galactic, but is being zoned out, being pulled in by the Everfrost. Their psychic powers unmatched as they burn through another point for Virtus.pro. And the portal,
play is late. That was crazy how Finzi just how quickly he was like, oh, there's a portal, I'm gonna jump through it, hello. Binary instantly punished. Nothing is going well for FaZe, but Virtus.pro are making a statement right now with how they're moving through Central Park.
Five starting to zone away, setting up a Pyro prison. Lovely bit of zoning potential. Cypher had Carbon Revival, just has not needed to touch that Q button yet. Just is in serious control. Radagasta starts to move up, straggling prison, but Rosa will still fall. Even with the ultimate, they just cannot find anything. Smashness has gone for the desperate play. Winter Soldier, if you are losing at this point, you need a miracle, and resets are your key.
Binary has stayed on the Strange, so he does have the Eye of Agamotto, but like, good lord, everybody from Virtus.pro is setting up and being aggressive, and because you have these flying targets, everybody's spread out. Are you going to get much with it? Smashness does have the Kraken's impact fairly quickly, and the Divers had to sort of go across horizontally from FaZe. They're not even fighting on the point itself. Now they're able to at least touch, but they've lost 2 players already, so this is a 4 versus 6 before the fights even happened. Where are FaZe gone? Where was the team from the first 2 maps?
Smashness taken down, so the Kraken impact not there. I'm going to be jumping onto the point, but it cannot reach the objective. They get the ultimate, but at no cost. Virtus Pro 3-0.
There's not many times that I've seen the time left go up after like an attacking side, but it has gone up 18 seconds. The Virtus Pro have more time to attack this next point if they go for a second attacking round than they do normally. That was a disaster for FaZe. It just, everything that could have gone wrong, Murphy's Law, everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
Dredro showing us his Lord Mr. Fantastic, waving to the audience after what is an incredibly successful round.
It's the weirdest
What is the
flex.
defensive strat here?
I mean, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I mean, the fact that he's still hovering over the Mr. Fantastic is concerning. Nobody got eliminated. Nobody died from Virtus Pro at all on that attacking side. That was quite literally perfect.
I think we need to report Dredro there for having, report Saipe, sorry, for having the least efficient Adam Warlock game ever. Not one decent Karmic Revival.
Yeah.
Whole game. Absolutely reported.
Not even needed on himself with the passive.
Oh, just full control. And as such, the pressure is now on FaZe, going to be sticking with that Winter Soldier because, yeah, it's time to wombo. It's time to reset. It's time to make something happen. They brought out the thing to try and deal with the Flyers. And you know what? Yeah, at this point, the Angela's been doing some work for him, but it has not found success in the last 2 rounds. So do this, give the armor to the Leolas so they can keep fighting in the sky and try and take down Fi and Sparker.
My eye's just going to be on the elimination feed to see if there's any red players that go down. And for FaZe, that's going to be their opening. If they can actually get a pick, and I mean, that's going to be the main target to focus on is Nevix. He does get caught by the Emma Frost, but able to disengage for some element of safety. But it has provided some movement for FaZe to actually get through this choke, at least to an extent. They're still trying to group up and not feed up Fi too much on his Human Torch with the splash damage, but that Eternal Bond is going to be their way in onto the backline of Virtus Pro.
Sparker on the flank trying to set up. Smashness tries to get a hook onto the Flyers, but Fi utilizes
Got a third.
the cover. If he actually lands those chained voltages, then we will see Sparker fall into the abyss and get taken down. Saipe will fall, but they have to cocoon to bring themselves back, and they will do so. At 94% for Karmic Revival, if they charge this, they can get Nevix back as well. But already, 2 out of 3 points for FaZe. They are trying to capitalize. They're trying to push through. Nevix respawns before Karmic Revival is available, meaning that we are committed to this longer fight with Nevix portaling back in.
And the ball play is going to be dedicated. Good time. Virtus Pro, it seemed that they're still kind of losing it. They still really need to touch right now, but they've thrown in 4 ultimates in order to go and fight this, including the Karmic Revival. Not as perfect as their attacking side. This is looking a little bit sloppy, but FaZe are banking on these ultimates. They have a Psionic Seduction, they have a Kraken's Impact, but they're not using them just yet. They waited for that Fate of Both Worlds, and now surely is the time to strike.
They pulled the trigger, they have ultimates, their opponents do not. Galactic Legend trying to chase down onto Sparker, who's got so much healing. The targeting was insane! They just out-healed a Galactic Legend! But Smashness in the meantime, while the strategists are busy, just got a double reset, looking for a third, chases down to finish what Leolas started. It's a team wipe, and the point is picked up by FaZe.
There was a crazy fight happening at the end there as Virtus Pro tried to spread themselves out and spread some of the damage being done, but there's just too brittle for the breakpoints, especially Smashness coming in. It's still going to be a rougher time, I think, for FaZe to try to manage to match up to what Virtus Pro threw down. But this is also just a weird fight as well. Like, it's just an all-out brawl for both sides, and the Emma Frost going in deep in that engagement. Meanwhile, the rest of Virtus Pro are finding the picks onto the Vanguards. Both Rosa and Binary go down.
Nevix dropped an Eye of Agamotto, but it was interrupted, meaning it got put on the 50% cooldown. So it is already nearly back, and they still got a double out of it. That is solid value there for Virtus Pro, but Sparker is now finished off, meaning that FaZe, while everyone respawns, is starting to make their way back in, setting themselves onto the point as Supernova comes out from 5.
It's a suppressive fire. Honestly, Layla's just deals with him nicely, but it is going to force Virtus Pro to use a silent seduction and also the camera revival at the same time, really stopping from FaZe, maybe slamming down. Maybe they're worried about the Kraken's impact just placed in that position, because it is a very aggressive karmic revival, and the Rage of Ultron is going to be used to Terracate blinding Sparker for a moment. But after everything said and done, Layaless and the Kraken's impact are going to come in with these ultimates swinging. The Eye of Agamotto only connects onto Binary, but that's enough. 3 players go down on the side of FaZe. Even off the back of those Duelist ultimates, the picks go the way of VP.
VP get the hold. We're down to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Ultimates-wise, though, pretty barren for the side of Virtus Pro, whereas we do have a clobbering time and an eternal bond for FaZe. This could give them the opening that they need. Fi, sustained up, has that regen drone, the imperative mend, and of course that imperative patch for imperative firewall for the extra burst bonus health.
We're seeing the mechanics really tested in this one, like especially with all of these aerial combats. You got Spitfires and Hurricanes up there taking brawls against each other, but VP are stalling this objective. It is moving at full pace now, however, with 2 minutes left for FaZe, but it's mostly off the back of the silent seduction, which has tried to be covered from Virtus Pro. The stun has been really good from Binary off of the clobbering time, but the Rage of Ultron keeping everybody topped up for VP. Nobody's gone down up until I say that, as Dreedro gets caught by Winnie.
92% for Saipe for a revive if they can sustain through this fight, which they cannot. Picked off, but the cocoon is available. Smashnez looking for a reset. Not a reset, but a beautiful shot onto Fi. Saipe returns, and so does the rest of the team. But the point's already taken. I don't think that's worth it.
Oh no, that camera revival is a disaster. It's happening on the other side, but not at the same pace. The ultimate not quite connecting, but it might give Virtus Pro some solace to switch away from the Adam Warlock onto something else, because you're on to this final point. And you know for a fact, FaZe are going to have a worse time if we do go to a second round of attacks for both sides. For both teams, it's been a long series. It's been sloppy from both sides. These mistakes are still potentially costly for Virtus Pro.
Nevix on the group looking to try and split FaZe away. Binary has brought back the Angela to try and send people off the side of the map, maybe just, and also get back to the point quickly. Everyone is adjusting. Supernova from behind on an already weakened backline forces out the fate of both worlds from Oasis. This is the trigger being pulled as Fire is picked off early. Psionic Seduction to try and get onto them. Smashness will get pulled in. Could be in serious trouble if the healers aren't on point, but they seem to be as they make their way up to the top of the stairs. This is FaZe's moment. They have to get the triple cap, and even if they do, they're still going to have almost 3 less minutes than Virtus Pro, but they need to get there first as Leo Galactic Legend, the Rage of Ultra from Sparker, though, picks up the first elimination.
Oh, it gets onto Winnie just before that Eternal Bond was available, and Nevix is good enough to clear it up without the need of that Strangling Prison. He has that just in the back pocket, or the back bit of bark on his backside, I guess, for Nevix with the Gru. It doesn't matter too much. Virtus Pro have it in hand, and whilst we did see the mess up with the Kamet Revival before from Virtus Pro, they're 80% to having another one, and there's about a minute left for FaZe to make this work. They have to finish the map, but every second against them seems to be piling in favor of VP.
Struggling Prison comes on out. The damage output is pretty solid, but FaZe with the Eternal Bond will be able to sustain on through this, and Kraken Impact is at the ready. One good vulnerability from a Terra Cape with a Kraken Impact could be enough to capitalize. The trigger's been pulled. Looking onto Groot for reset number 1, which they will get, but Smashness is dropped low. Karmic Revival brings Nevix back into the fight to try and push on in to break this final hold. Kraken Impact onto Vinci. Nevix has returned. Saipe taken down, but they have Cocoon. They can return to this fight themselves as Rage of Ultron to stay on the point. Heaven's Descent to hold on the point with the Retribution to sustain on him, but Sparker's damage is overwhelming. Supernova melts on through, and FaZe are creeping forward slowly, but their health bars are disappearing. Portal for one last chance.
The portal play is everything from Binary. The timing couldn't be better, but you've got 15 seconds left, and every ultimate you had, you just used. Silent Seduction from Finzi could be the death nail in this coffin, and the fate of both worlds for Dreedro is going to be enough to sit back comfortably for Virtus Pro. It's nothing left for FaZe. The time bank is done. OT or bust, and that pick onto Smashnez might have just sent this one packing for FaZe. It might be just looking at playoffs and a third seed seed to go with as Virtus Pro 2-0 down in this best of 5 Tetra. Requires a reverse sweep for them to go on to the upper bracket final tomorrow.
Virtus Pro move on. What a reverse sweep. FaZe made them work for it. They took the first two maps and then took them to the limit on map number 5. But Virtus Pro are still Virtus Pro. They make their way on to that upper bracket final for the rematch versus Na'Vi to decide seed number 1 in this group.
It's a hell of a series, though. We sort of said that FaZe could be a dark horse to qualify for Atlanta as a top 3 team from EMEA, and I think that proved the point. It was just that Virtus Pro really started to warm up in this series, but namely the Jeff ban against Winnie. That was one of the main difference makers, and once the Jeff wasn't in the server, it really did feel that Virtus Pro were pretty much on top consistently in all of the 3 maps that we saw.
It really did, but we gotta say that FaZe are looking very scary with the threat of that Jeff, but also being one of the teams that Binary is being a difference maker in a lot of these games, being able to play the Angela and the Thing and being willing to bring it out for these counter plays while everyone else is playing, well, I say everyone else, a lot of teams are playing some fairly standard this patch rivals at this point. I do love their flexibility. But Virtus Pro, it took them a little bit to get locked in, but immediately we started to see the team that we're so used to. It just did not look close in games 3 and 4.
But I think that's more to say what Virtus Pro's tenacity in these more than FaZe, maybe running out of steam a little bit, but at least you're able to get some reps against one of the best teams in the world still. Like, you know, it's easy to really simple for Virtus Pro when there's a team that has just been so dominant for so long, and then just a couple of series that they do end up losing in their history, and the most defining because it stops us seeing the more international events. But here, international events is not really on the focus for the teams right now. Good seeding is, but I think Virtus Pro are going to be frustrated at how that series initially started, but they can give themselves a pat on the back of like, okay, we rectified it. They're a good team. We didn't tilt ourselves off the face of the planet and go out 0-3. We clawed it back. We can do that in the big games too.
Sure, and we'll 100% be asking them about what went wrong in those first 2 games if we get the interview. But like you say, it's no longer time to focus on those global finals. It is time to actually focus on getting through the playoffs. And the best way to do that is to take an early advantage by getting that number 1 seed, which Virtus Pro, they've done what they can to get themselves there. FaZe are now locked in as 3rd seed. They will be playing against the loser of Citadel versus Chopped in the other group.
I think they played Chopped in MRC, so that would be an interesting rematch potentially. But also, I think Citadel against a team like FaZe could be caught out with some of the turbulent form that we have seen them in. So, like I said, I feel like we have our like favorites of who's going to be qualifying as a top 3 team out of EMEA, but I don't think that's evidently just going to be the list every single time. I think there's a couple of names that might surprise you. I think FaZe could easily be one of them.
Top 10 teams to qualify from EMEA for LAN number 3 might surprise you.
Yeah.
No, it's so close and actually highly contested at the moment at the top of EMEA. Like, we look towards like Na'Vi because they are the world champions, but the fact is they have lost up to this point in some of the warm-up tournaments before this. Anyone could take this. Any of these playoff teams could be heading to Atlanta.
Yeah, and that's also off the back of Na'Vi losing 2 series at the mid-season finals too. So it's not as if they had a golden road, never dropped a map. Really? They dropped series. They dropped more series than you'd typically be allowed to lose because of the playing stage and then the playoffs. So I think a team losing and going down to losers bracket at this stage in the tournament isn't an indictment against them being world champions at this rate. You take what lessons you can and you roll back from it. And it seems that Virtus Pro did that in real time with Lewis' first 2 maps.
Legitimately did, because looking at the global stage for which we'll eventually be getting to, a lot of those teams are looking incredibly scary as well. Envy are still Envy, the team that took 2 out of the 3 series played versus Na'Vi. The only time Na'Vi beat them was in the finals. Every other time they lost to Envy. And they're the same roster with some very minor changes and are still looking so strong. Internationally, OUG MRC, who did look pretty strong. They're still performing well, as well as Iconics have come in and starting to impress. In Oceania, the team that did so well Ground Zero are now basically chopper mag with players from China, some of the best ones there as well. The representation is terrifying. Asia is also much more competitive now at the top. The international competition is looking terrifying.
And it should do, really, when you've got a $1 million prize pool attached to it as basically the flagship event from what has been a pretty generous year, I think, for like the first Ignite campaign, $3 million prize pool, a third of that dedicated to that final event. Yeah, no surprise that we're seeing some orgs be like, hello, we're ready to jump in now. And with teams like FaZe, with teams like Chopped, I think there's gonna be an unsigned team that does head to Atlanta. That's not even really like a hot take, I don't think, because when you've got like Virtus Pro, Citadel, Navi, I think one of them isn't making it. It's either Chopped or FaZe that goes instead. That's kind of like my gut feeling. I couldn't tell you who, and I couldn't tell you in what context, but yeah, there's probably orgs that are still watching, going, keep an eye on them, and I think FaZe is on that list of teams to keep an eye on for.
Well, we have all these teams getting ready to head to those international events. While EMEA only gets 3 spots, America gets 4, which we're of course disappointed about. But what we can't be disappointed about is the 4th PlayStation. PlayStation 4 is the place you can play Marvel Rivals with Season 4. So many 4s now available. Heart of the Dragon can be played on most of the modern consoles, and also now PlayStation 4 being brought into the fold. Just another additional way for you to play with your friends and play this incredible game.
You got the console tournaments as well. I don't know if that still would work with PlayStation 4, because I don't think it defines what console it would be, but I don't know. Give it a try. See if you can play in the actual game settings. And obviously, all of the major content, for MRC, all of the major content is for free as well, outside of, your skins and your emotes and stuff. But as we saw with the Shallow event, you can earn a lot of those skins from just playing as well, going through those kind of battle passes. So yeah, there's plenty to be working with on whichever console that you go for, but I'm allowed to be annoyed if I see you playing on the PlayStation 4 and I'm on PC and quick play. Like, that's still even grounds, I think.
We can have fun. Either way, we already know that console players are just good as well, but we do, of course, separate when it comes to the MRCs, just for the sake of most friends will be playing with each other on their own systems. Here is the bracket for Group B. Virtus Pro taking an intense series, locking FaZe in at seed number 3 for Group B, and Virtus Pro looking for revenge versus Na'Vi in those Group B Grand Finals.
Yeah, both of the Grand Finals for the groups are grudge matches and revenge matches, and instead of it being a best of 3 that these teams ended up losing, it's a full best of 5, so both of these I think are going to be really worth watching, because I do think that the seeding is going to be impactful for all 4 of the teams that we're going to see in action tomorrow. It really is just, what are they willing to show? Because I think that those kind of pivots, for FaZe, for example, that Jeff ban really started to screw them over. But now they know that. How do they avoid that from happening? But we do have an interview from Virtus Pro. I know people are putting that they want the Saipei interview in. Unfortunately not. We are looking towards the Vanguard line of Nevix that's been here a few times. I think the first question, Nevix, was, that seemed a lot harder than you were probably anticipating, right? What went wrong in those first 2 maps?
Yeah, it was a bit harder, but I don't know, it wasn't just it wasn't our day, I would say. We were a bit lost in the beginning, and we started snowballing in a bad direction, so it was just a bit rough, with the matchup we played.
So how do you take it from, like you say, the momentum not going your way, the series not going your way, struggling to find your footing? How do you lock back in? This is something that, weirdly enough to say, you guys haven't actually experienced that much, because up until very recently, you guys have been pretty dominant in most of your series. So how are you finding these new positions where you have to recover from series that aren't going your way?
Well, we just gotta go back and think about the basics and focus on what we need to do, and step by step, just take it slower, okay? Because I got a bit rushed, and I got a little bit stressed out on the first map, because I wasn't exactly sure what to do in this matchup, so I had a pretty poor performance myself. But we just gotta stay calm and stay focused, and then go from there.
Who was the factor on the team between the second and the third map to say that kind of stuff like, let's just calm down and relax, because you also did start banning out the Jeff first. That was like a really big pivot that really stopped FaZe from having that much impact with Jeff because they couldn't play him. Like, who was it that sort of leads that talk between the second map loss going into Jalia and then you winning every single map? Who would you sort of put that down as? Blaney was super useful, or Finzi was the guy that really picked us up? Who was it that really pulled you guys back into that series, would you say?
I mean, I think everyone put in their fair share and we all came together, and also our coach EKO tried to get us all on the right way, like the right mindset to lock in and that it's winnable. But yeah, the whole team, I would say.
Let's talk about a draft change you guys made around when those games started going in your favor again. I would just love to hear your generalized thoughts on Jeff as you guys went from nuking him in-game to nuking him out of game.
Well, I think he's pretty strong right now. Like, his healing is so high, his survivability is insane. He's really good with the Venom, because the synergy, like you dive and then you hit everyone with your left click. And his ult is also, he can like do so much in some fights, even against support ults and in neutrals. Like, I don't know, it's just so strong.
I know that you and Finzi, or anybody that does the Virtus Pro interviews, usually stresses about accidentally leaking anything. But it's more of a question because we have had like people from Citadel Gaming talk earlier and be like, they don't really care about the drafts that they've done. Is that been sort of similar for you? It feels like a lot of teams are just naturally, just outright saying, yeah, we're saving stuff for next week. Is Virtus Pro also on that list of there's stuff that we haven't shown yet that we're waiting to show next week?
I mean, I don't know. We changed it up here and there, so we definitely have some stuff saved up, but we go with the feeling of the enemy team usually and how we're feeling.
So, due to your success in the past, you guys have a lot of people out there who were very much looking forward to seeing you go to mid-season. You fell just short of that. There's going to be equally as many people rooting and getting behind you guys to go to the global finals in a month and a bit. So my question for you is, what do you have to say for the fans that have stuck with you through this?
Well, I appreciate all of you guys for cheering us on. Sorry. And I'm really happy that we hopefully can make it to this land, because last time it was a big disappointment. So this time around, we want to make all the fans happy, everyone cheering for us and the org, and we want to, have a good showing.
All right, thank you very much for joining us. Nevix will let you go prepare for tomorrow's game so that you can get your run back versus Na'Vi. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And that is what we have to look forward to tomorrow. Na'Vi versus Virtus Pro and